Destiny 2 has seen some drastic changes over the past 10 years, from the double primary system all the way to prismatic. So I'm going to go over the most impactful and game-changing weapons from all 28 seasons in Destiny 2. I'm Marshix and I play Destiny. If you enjoy, all I ever ask for is just a like down below. Also, for $1, you can join the channel for pictures of wet bread. Vanilla Destiny 2 was a weird time. We had to use 2 primary weapons, and all of our modern special weapons like fusion rifles and snipers were in the heavy slot. Because of this, I want to say Merciless was the best because it was a DPS powerhouse as a heavy weapon, but the actual best weapon from Season 1 is definitely Sunshot. This hand cannon makes every kill create chaining explosions, so it's really strong for clearing out small enemies, and it still to this day is one of the best primary weapons in the game. Season 2 was a massive low point for Destiny, and for good reasons. The story was decent, but short, the old weapon system sucked, and there wasn't really any good loot to chase besides maybe Perfect Paradox. For the most part, I continued using Season 1 weapons. However, one weapon that stood above all the others for a short time was Prometheus Lens. This trace rifle was killing people in the Crucible in like a 1/10 of a second. Way faster than any other weapon, and to those of us who got it quickly, we were unstoppable. Because this exotic was so strong and Bungie couldn't fix it immediately, they decided to have Xur sell it to put everyone on an even playing field, and it created utter chaos in the Crucible. This has since been remembered as Laser Tag Weekend, and they even gave out an exclusive emblem to anyone who played during that time. Season 3 came with the release of Warmind, and it brought back one of Destiny 1's best exotics, the Black Spindle, but they made it even stronger. Whisper of the Worm is a sniper rifle in the heavy slot, so it hits harder than other snipers, and when it first came out, it literally had infinite ammo. Hitting 3 precision shots would return all 3 shots back from thin air, so as long as you were accurate, you could shoot this forever, giving it by far the highest total damage in the game because technically it could do infinite damage. It has since been nerfed for obvious reasons, only returning 1 ammo every 3 shots, but it's still an excellent weapon, especially for bosses with big crits and long damage phases. Forsaken introduced a lot of new weapons, some good and some bad, but the most influential weapon to come out of this was probably Thunderlord. This was part of Festival of the Lost, back when that wasn't a buggy mess. This amazing weapon was given to us for free as part of a yearly event, much like how this yearly event is also giving out very powerful rewards for a limited time. Raid is celebrating its 7th anniversary, and they're giving out a ton of rewards for new players. I've been playing Raid for years. They were my first sponsor ever, back when my channel had around 10,000 subs, and before Gallahorn existed in Destiny 2. And it's crazy to see just how much Raid has improved during that time too. Back then, we didn't have Champion Awakening, the Hydra, or the Grim Forest, which is my favorite activity in the game, and I can't wait to see what's next. Together with Raid, I've been able to make a ton of awesome videos, so I just want to say thank you for supporting me all these years. If you download the game right now with my link in the description or with this QR code, new players can get a $200 anniversary package, including the legendary champion Krokmar the Devourer as soon as you start, the epic champion Galapo the Recluse at level 25, and a ton of extra resources as you hit certain milestones. But you have to use my link. On top of that, new players can get the free legendary champion Pelops the Victor by using promo code RAID7. He's an HP hybrid tank that brings magma shields, taunts, and HP burn. He's really strong. Or if you don't want him, you can pick any of these champions by using their codes. You only get one, so pick carefully. I recommend Ultimate Death Knight to keep your team alive, or Sun Wukong if you plan on climbing the ranks in PvP. And I finally made it to Gold 5 thanks to him. Besides that, all players can get their hands on Pelops the Victor between March 5th and March 21st through his classic Fusion event, as well as a 7-day gift chain to give you a bunch of free rewards and a Titan event to earn a unique 7th anniversary avatar frame. What are you waiting for? Try Raid today and join the celebration. Also, I need help clearing the clan bosses, so join my clan called the Meerkat Crew and we can take them all together. Thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. But the most influential weapon to come out of this was probably Thunderlord. Kills and sustained damage will create lightning strikes that partially reload it. So this is obviously incredible for ad clear, but this has also been a great DPS option for many raid bosses in the past. Since it reloads itself, you can fire for a long time. It deals above average damage, and it builds up supers fast too, allowing you to spam Thunder Crashes and Golden Guns. and this got updated to also work with bolt charge, so you'll build up bolt charge stacks really fast while using this. Up next is Black Armory, one of my favorite seasons. This brought us a ton of new weapons with the awesome Black Armory theme. I could talk about these weapons for days, like how Striker's Sure Hand could deal 1 billion damage when it had no ammo, Kindle Orchid with its double damage perks, or Threat Level, which was the kinetic version of the incredible Ikello shotgun. But after careful consideration, I gotta go with the Scourge of the Past raid exotic, Anarchy. This shoots mines that connect to each other and deal damage over time, allowing us to set traps to stop small enemies, or tag a boss and get some free damage in the background as we deal damage with our other weapons and abilities. This design was very creative, and it fundamentally changed how we look at DPS. Before this, there weren't really damage over time effects, so this unlocked new strategies like the double slug hot swap meta, and while it isn't really used much today, it's still a solid weapon with a lot of utility. Honorable mention to Mountaintop, which also broke the game because it could one-shot in Crucible and didn't have to reload when paired with the old Luna faction boots. So you could just spam this over and over and over at a boss and absolutely melt them from any distance. Rest in peace. Season of the Drifter is remembered as one of the worst times in Destiny, but it did bring one good thing, and that is 0 Hour. This was a secret mission that released on a random day. Upon starting the mission, you would only have 20 minutes to find your way through to the end. After traversing through the old tower and meeting Trevor, you would find yourself in the firing range. After clearing the room and defeating the boss, you would be given Outbreak Perfected, a really strong pulse rifle that creates Siva nanites. These are good for killing small enemies, but its true power comes when multiple people use it. Dealing sustained damage will spawn Siva nanites, and the more nanites on your target, the more damage it deals. So with a full team constantly adding nanites, this quickly became a really strong damage strategy, and since it's a primary weapon, ammo was almost never a problem for it. I actually beat the Crown of Sorrow raid during the first week using only 6 outbreaks, and it was glorious. And as time went on, it got nerfed and power crept, but years later, it returned to the spotlight, and we might talk about that later. The original Recluse also released at this time as a comp weapon, and it was so good that they invented the idea of sunsetting. The original Master of Arms perk was exclusive to this, and it would give a big damage buff just by getting a kill with any weapon. Basically a stronger version of Rampage that was easier to keep active. Recluse and Outbreak were both extremely powerful, and I can't make up my mind on which is better, so if you played back then, let me know your favorite in the comments. Now, while Season of the Drifter was kinda mid, Season of Opulence after it was actually pretty good. It had all the opulent weapons like Austringer, Callous Mini Tool, Dring Baroque, and Beloved, as well as 3 pinnacle weapons and some really strong exotics. So for my top weapon, I gotta go with Revoker. This is the only weapon with the Reversal of Fortune perk. After missing a shot, as long as you don't shoot again, it will return the missed shot after a few seconds. So in Crucible, you could go for riskier plays because even if you miss, you're not really punished. Just wait a few seconds and you can attempt it again. This made it really overpowered in comp and trials, and this is another reason why sunsetting was a thing. Even after it got sunset, it continued to plague trials, so they had to further nerf the perk, making it return 1 ammo after you missed 2 shots. A nerf that was so brutal that it would have been nicer to just remove it from the game. Now on to Shadowkeep. This expansion brought us the Garden of Salvation raid, and by unlocking secrets in the raid, you can discover Divinity. This trace rifle will put a bubble around your target, and any damage dealt to the bubble will be counted as crit damage, and it applies a debuff on top of that. This is another weapon that completely changed the game on a fundamental level. As long as one player is using Divinity, the entire team can safely use weapons that rely on crit damage without needing the skill to be accurate. Back in the day, if a boss had a small crit spot, you have to get good. But after Divinity, if a boss has a small crit, you just put the worst player on Div and you let the rest of the team do all the work. This made it basically mandatory for most raids, and even though they have nerfed it since, it's still basically mandatory for some encounters like Rolk since he moves around so much. Season of Dawn didn't have any flashy and overpowered weapons. They were decent at the time, but nothing too special. And while my favorite weapon was Last Hope 2.0 with Feeding Frenzy and Rampage, I think the actual best weapon was Perfect Paradox 2.0. This was an amazing shotgun in Season 2, but it was a static roll, so this updated version gave it access to 2 big shotgun perks. Trench Barrel, which has always been pretty good, and 1-2 Punch, which was still fairly new at the time. Season of the Worthy. This season had many iconic weapons like the Summoner, Felwinter's Lie, and Eye of Soul, but none of those weapons matter because it also introduced Warmind cells. These were red balls that you could interact with if you had armor mods equipped. The Arc mods would do things when you collect them, the Void mods would activate when you damage them, and the Solar mods would do some crazy things when you destroy them. The Solar mods were by far the strongest because you could build into them to make each one blow up literally the entire room. And kills with it could spawn more, so you can chain them back to back to back. But how did we create them in the first place? Well, you needed to get kills with any of these legendary Seraph weapons, and the best one of the bunch was the SMG. Its perk pool wasn't anything special, but it did get decent rolls, and it spawned these Warmind cells, which automatically made it better than every other SMG, minus the Recluse. I remember using this for months straight alongside Xenophage, because there was another mod that allowed Xenophage to spawn Warmind cells. Why don't we have fun stuff like this anymore? Season 11 gave us reprised Ikelos weapons that could also spawn Warmind cells, and they were generally better than the Seraph weapons. However, those are nothing compared to the Battle Pass exotic, Witherhoard. I'm sure you've seen this weapon, and for good reason. It's a kinetic grenade launcher that can block off choke points, spawn kill adds, and deal damage over time to bosses. And with its catalyst, it can reload itself while stowed, so you never have to reload it. This thing provides so much value, and it's just a special weapon. It's a staple for damage rotations using auto-loading holster or bait and switch, and every once in a while, we get grenade launcher artifact mods that take this to an entirely new level. After that was Beyond Light, one of the darkest days in Destiny history. While the expansion was good, it also brought sunsetting, where large chunks of the game were removed to make space for future content. A lot of controversy came with this, and its effects still impact the game today. It made the game a lot harder to get into for new players, because the first few years of the story no longer exists, and the game started to lack permanence. If you want to fix the game, Bungie, bring back permanence. Stop giving us great pieces of content like Pantheon and the Nether, and then remove it 8 weeks later. That feels like such a waste of resources. But getting back to the video, after the Deepstone Crypt raid was beaten for the first time, it unlocked an exotic mission that gave us Lament. This was by far the best weapon from Beyond Light because not only did it deal a lot of damage, but it also healed you as you were using it, taking a lot of risk away from using a sword. And it has since been a go-to weapon for close quarter fights like Crota, Ekthar, and Ghost of the Deep, and the second encounter of Salvation's Edge. While there are other swords that can deal more damage, no other sword ensures your safety like Lament. Season 13 brought us one of the best artifact mods ever created, and a great weapon that used it to dominate the meta. Particle Deconstruction, or Reconstruction, I forget the name, was a mod that applied a debuff with any fusion rifle damage. This meant your special weapon could fill the role of tractor cannon, and it could be used against everything. Not to mention, the newly updated Cartesian coordinate already dealt good damage with a Vorpal weapon, so this just made it even better. Pair this with a heavy fusion rifle like Sleeper Simulant or 1K, and you'll have some serious damage potential. This mod has come back in a few artifacts recently, but it's a watered down version of the original. And I heard rumors that we might be getting an updated Cartesian coordinate soon, so we might see this in the meta once again. Season of the Splicer. Back then, GMs used to be a lot harder than they are today. It would take longer to kill everything, even the red bars, and resilience at the time was literally useless, so enemies would hit really hard. Because of this, grenade launchers with blinding grenades were a must-have for some GMs, and in Season 14, we got one of the best blinding grenade launchers of all time, Ignition Code. This was the first good kinetic grenade launcher to get blinding grenades. The only weapon before it was Season 4's Malicious Birthright, which got a whole lot of nothing. Now compare that to Ignition Code, which also got Vorpal Weapon for a little bit more damage, and more importantly, Slide Shot, so you could slide instead of reloading, making it shoot much faster than other grenade launchers, and giving you more uptime on your blind effect. Nowadays, blinding grenade launchers aren't really important since you can just blow up the entire room in a single consecration, but it was very powerful at one point in time. Honorable mention to Fatebringer and Vex Mythoclast because I love those weapons. Season of the Lost brought so many great weapons like Gallahorn, the Battle Rifle, Reed's Regret, and Hothead. but it's undeniable that the most influential weapons from this season are the 2 Halo swords with Eager Edge. This perk allows you to move around the map really fast, and for a long time, these were the only weapons with Eager Edge. This allows players to reach areas we aren't supposed to see, get solo raid loot for free, skip basically any jumping puzzle, and it even enables multiple low man challenges that previously wouldn't be physically possible. So while these swords don't one-shot bosses or give our rocket launchers wolfpack rounds, they have definitely had the most impact on the game. Witch Queen was a massive turning point for the sandbox. Not only did we get the Void 3.0 subclass, but we also got the first round of craftable weapons. Most of them were painfully bad, but there was one weapon that single-handedly power creeped every special weapon. That's right, Valve the Disciples' very own Forbearance. This was a craftable wave frame grenade launcher that got chain reaction. This makes every kill explode, which makes it incredible for wiping out tons of small enemies, and since wave frames are already super strong at ad clear, this just amplified its potential. On top of that, it got Ambitious Assassin, which allowed it to hold 2 grenades per reload, and it had an origin trait that heals after every reload. All of this together made it the best ad clearing weapon for a long time, and while chain reaction has been nerfed since then, it's still a very strong option to this day. And if you played during End of the Light, you may have a shiny version of this sitting in your vault. Season of the Haunted was one of the worst seasons. The activity was basically just Mercury from Curse of Osiris, but reskinned as the Corrupted Leviathan. And the story was only 1 mission per week, while we helped the Vanguard leaders get over their boring trauma. How much do you want to bet the riders had blue hair? But despite all that, it did bring a couple of good weapons that I continued to use for many years after. Those weapons are Riptide and Callous Mini Tool. Riptide was the first rapid-fire fusion rifle with chill clip, and it also got auto-loading holster. These perks made it a powerhouse for high-end content with its absurd crowd control, and its inherent champion stunning capabilities since chill clip used to stun overloads and unstops. But as good as this weapon was, I think I have to give number 1 to Callous Mini Tool. This season introduced Solar 3.0 and Scorch alongside it, which means this was the first group of weapons to get Incandescent, one of the strongest perks we've ever gotten, even to this day. Callous Mini Tool with Incandescent was such an unbelievably powerful weapon for ad clear, and while it wasn't as strong as Forbearance, it was a primary weapon, and it provided synergy with the newly updated subclasses. It was also craftable, so you were guaranteed to get the god roll after a bit of grinding. And it got one of the best origin traits ever released, giving us 20 strength and 20 discipline while our super is filled. For you noobs out there, these are what the melee and grenade stats were called back when the stat cap was only 100. So this provided a lot of free stats. All of this together made it really strong, and I only really stopped using it when Edge of Fate came out, as you can see with my 30,000 kills. Also, when I wasn't using it, I was using this next weapon from Season of Plunder, Zaouli's Bane. This is basically just Sunshot turned into a legendary weapon. It gets explosive payload to give it a small damage buff, and Incandescent to spread Scorch with every kill. And similar to Callous Mini Tool, this was craftable, ensuring we get the god roll after doing King's Fall a few times. They took one of the strongest exotics and turned it into a legendary, so I had to add it to the list. Season of the Seraph was a banger. It brought us to the Spire of the Watcher dungeon, a 6 out of 10 exotic mission, and more importantly, the crafted Ikelos SMG. This was the 3rd time it was released, but every previous iteration was solid, and this one was even better. While it doesn't have Warmind cells anymore, thanks to sunsetting, it is craftable, and it was the first good SMG to have a new perk called Volt Shot, allowing it to create chain lightning each time you reload. And conveniently, this could also be crafted with Feeding Frenzy, a reload perk that only requires kills, meaning there was very little downtime between Volt Shot triggers, making this a monster for ad clear, and one of the best primary weapons we've seen up until that point. Now time for everyone's favorite expansion, this piece of trash. Now I'll be honest, I hated most of the weapons from this season. Rufus's Fury, Briar's Contempt, and the Immortal were all cool, but everything else was kinda mid. So for this season, I'm gonna cheat a little bit and say Quicksilver Storm. This technically released 2 seasons earlier as the Lightfall pre-order bonus, but with Lightfall, we got its catalyst, unlocking its full potential. This auto rifle shoots out micro missiles as you fire, and it has an alternate fire mode that turns it into a grenade launcher. It's also a kinetic weapon, but once you equip its catalyst, it becomes a strand weapon, and it creates tangles, giving it a lot of synergy for the newly released strand subclasses. And it only got better as time went on, because back then, we used to get new subclass updates every season, giving us new aspects and fragments like Whirling Maelstrom and Fletchet Storm. Where are the prismatic updates, Bungie? Did Marathon take that from us too? Season 21 was Season of the Deep. This was very much a filler season, but it did bring us a dungeon, a new exotic mission, fishing, yes, this was a real thing, and an updated loot pool for Last Wish, which is where the best weapon from this season comes from. Apex Predator is a very strong rocket launcher, and I believe it was the first to get bait and switch. This is one of the strongest damage perks in the game, giving it a 35% damage buff before it got nerfed. And all you have to do is rotate between all of your weapons. Super easy to use, and it provided a ton of extra damage. It could also get reconstruction, which allowed it to reload itself and hold up to 2 rockets at a time. So not only did it deal more damage than other rockets, but you could also shoot twice as many shots. And it would reload itself in the background while you're dealing damage with your special weapon. This made it the best heavy weapon at the time, and no other rocket really compared. Season of the Witch brought us new strand aspects, including Banner of War, the strongest aspect. At the same time, we got the updated Crota's Inn raid, and one of the weapons from this raid made Banner of War absolutely insane. Swordbreaker was a shotgun that could get 1-2 punch to make our Banner of War melees deal a ton of damage, plus it has an origin trait that makes enemies explode like a cursed thrall after you get melee kills. So you shotgun enemies to deal more damage, and if you happen to kill them with the shotgun, they'll explode to kill everything around them. It also got Slide Shot to bypass reloading, Pugilist to give you more melee energy to feed into Banner of War, or even better, Demolitionist to reload each time you use your grapple grenade, which you do a lot in that build. On top of that, since it was strand, you could still utilize perks like Threat of Propagation to deal even more damage. This was the shotgun for Banner of War builds, and I still find myself using it every once in a while. But to be honest, it kinda got power crept by the newest Perfect Paradox. Season of the Wish was an amazing time in Destiny. Not because the season was good, but because it gave us Into the Light. So instead of lumping these together, let's treat Into the Light as its own season because it kinda was. Season of the Wish brought us a 7 out of 10 seasonal activity, with new seasonal weapons, a new dungeon called Warlord's Ruin, the Star-Crossed exotic mission for Wishkeeper, an updated loot pool for the Prophecy dungeon, and more. And out of all of that, I have to go with Scatter Signal as the best weapon. This is the first ever strand rapid-fire fusion rifle, which is exactly what we were waiting for ever since Riptide years earlier, and this did not disappoint. It got the unique perk combo of Overflow to hold lots of ammo, and Controlled Burst, making it hit really hard. It was great for majors, and it was also a solid sub-DPS option for bosses. I remember running this alongside Dragon's Breath for my solo flawless Warlord's Ruin, and I basically never took it off for the rest of the season. Which brings us to Into the Light. This update brought us 2 revamped exotic missions with craftable exotics. Onslaught, which was a very fun, challenging, and rewarding activity, at least at the time. And Pantheon, which was a raid gauntlet that combined some of the best raid encounters into one escalating challenge. And they were updated to have a unique twist that made it feel fresh, like having a second Shadow Rolk in the boss arena. This was one of the best times in Destiny, and the loot associated with it reflects that. This brought us the Brave Arsenal, a bunch of classic weapons from the past, updated, giving them new perks, a new paint job, and even the first shiny holofoil variants, which I suggested they add years before in this video, and they stole my idea. And they made it worse because they removed it from the game like 2 months after, and what I recommended was they do it for every single weapon and just make it a shader. And out of all of these weapons, I think the best one and the most impactful is Mountaintop. This was the old Pinnacle weapon I mentioned in Season 4, but this version was much different. They changed how this weapon works, allowing us to rocket jump with it, which opened up the game to a bunch of new movement techs. On top of that, it also got new perks. Before, it only had Rangefinder and Rampage, but with this new version, it got so much more. Overflow and Ambitious Assassin would allow it to hold 2 rockets at a time. Autoloading Holster made it great in bait and switch rotations with Apex Predator. and every perk in the 4th column provides a damage increase, so no matter what you got, it would be decent. But my favorite was definitely Recombination. This would double the damage of Mountaintop after just getting a few kills with your other weapons and abilities. When paired with auto-loading holster, you could shoot this and stow it, and by the time it reloads itself and you swap back, you'll have a massive damage buff. And I do have one honorable mention for Into the Light, because the craftable Outbreak Perfected really improved it. This still creates nanites and deals more damage based on the amount of nanites, but the crafted version allowed it to hold more ammo since you could change the magazine, and it gave it rewind rounds to reload it multiple times as you fire. You don't have to go out of your way to do anything, and it makes it shoot way longer than the original. The first Outbreak could only hold 33 shots, but this new version can shoot like over 100. A significant increase, allowing it to take full advantage of all the nanites, and it made GM Nightfalls a joke. Now on to peak Destiny 2, the final shape. Looking back on it, this was such a magical time to play. It was the culmination of the past 10 years, and it wrapped it up so beautifully. We enter the Traveler, we reunite with Cade, we journey to Mount Doom, confront the Witness, and finish him off in a large-scale battle with a 12-man fire team. The entire campaign was so simple, yet so powerful. You start out in the old tower, and you have to make your way to the bad guy. Every step of the way, you can look forward to see the Witness's castle in the distance, and you can look back and see just how far you've come. It was a journey that took time and added weight to the whole experience. And part of that journey led us to the most impactful weapon from that expansion, Still Hunt. This is a sniper rifle that shoots golden gun shots. And during the first couple weeks of Salvation's Edge, you basically had to use this sniper rifle. It dealt so much damage, and if you were a hunter, you got even more benefits, because it also has a unique combo with Celestial Nighthawk, condensing all of its golden gun shots into one really powerful shot. While weapons like the Call, Perfect Paradox, and Choir of One are really strong, Still Hunt was way stronger, so I think it deserves the top spot. Season 25 was episode Revenant, where Crow confronts his son after he left to get milk and cigarettes. This season wasn't great, but compared to what we get now, I wish we had this again. This brought us the Vespers Host Dungeon, which is home to many great weapons, most notably Chill Inhibitor. This was the best grenade launcher at the time because it could get Envious Arsenal and Bait and Switch to give it a damage buff and bypass reloading at the same time. It was very strong and immediately power crept the old Bait and Switch rotations. But the story doesn't end there, because while everyone was farming for this weapon, a few people realized that the God roll was much rarer to drop than other perk rolls, and it was all based on the distance of the perks in the database. I'm not going to go over the details because I don't actually know all the details, but long story short, Bungie called them liars, they provided proof, Bungie still called them liars, and then the whole community came together to provide proof. And then Bungie eventually admitted that they were wrong and that the game had been bugged for I guess years without anyone realizing. And to make up for it, they ended up giving everyone the God Roll Chill Inhibitor for free, as well as a few other weapons that were affected by the bug. Episode Heresy was another amazing season. This brought us a new activity called the Nether, which was basically the patrol zone from Season of the Haunted, but actually good. It also gave us the revamped Sunless Cell Strike, a bunch of awesome weapons with shiny adept versions, and a new dungeon called Sunder Doctrine. This dungeon brought us a very powerful shotgun called Unvoiced, which I would probably put at number 1 if I ever got the God roll. This allegedly gets redirection and bait and switch, and this roll allows it to output some crazy damage. These guys are melting everything with it, and it's just a special weapon. But since I never got my hands on it, despite grinding this dungeon a lot, I can't say with 100% confidence that it's number 1, so if that's not number 1, my other choice would be Barrow Dyad. This is a really strong SMG that builds up charge as you fire, and releases that charge after you reload, and you can craft it with target lock to give it even more damage. This alone is strong, but if you pair it with a Peacekeeper Titan running a Storm's Keep Barricade, it can deal a ton of damage, putting it up there with most heavy weapons. It also generates a lot of super energy, so you can spam Thunder Crashes too for even more damage. And I still use this build today because it's just that powerful. Should I just end the video here? Heresy was the last time Destiny was actually fun. Okay, fine. Edge of Fate was and experience. And it was only carried by the most fun weapon type to ever exist, the Rocket Pulse Rifle, specifically Mint Retrograde. This shoots 3 rockets per trigger pull, and each one hits hard. This gets damage perks like Elemental Honing and One for All, and in the other column it gets rewind rounds. This is special on rocket pulses because it allows the gun to shoot all of its ammo reserves before you ever have to reload. Pair that with the OP artifact mods at the time, and this dominated the meta. This was by far the most used weapon during that season, with something crazy like 80% of people using it. I don't remember the exact number. And even though its ammo reserves got nerfed, it's still one of the best weapons 7 months after its release. Ashen Iron technically wasn't a season, but let's be honest, it was literally a season. While this is probably the worst time in Destiny's history, it did bring one weapon back to the spotlight, the Mida Mini Tool. This is a slight improvement to the old Callus Mini Tool, and it's on the new tier system. This still gets incandescent, but where the old one only got threat detector, this new one gets heal clip to heal after reloading, or attrition orbs to spawn tons of orbs of power. Either one of these will provide a lot more value than the previous version, and tier 5s have multiple perks to swap between on the fly. This has always been one of the best primary weapons, and this new version just makes it even better. And that brings us to Renegades. The best weapon for this season is absolutely, without a doubt, the lightsaber. It's the most fun sword we've ever had, it's highly customizable, it hits very hard, and it can place different elemental debuffs, which gives it a lot of subclass synergy too. And the artifact has pushed it over the top, giving it more damage and basically infinite ammo. If you aren't using this in every activity, you're at a massive disadvantage. Once the artifact rotates, it'll fall closer in line with our other exotics, but until then, this is by far the best weapon from Renegades. Which season was your favorite? Let me know in the comments, and click on this video for the only armor sets worth using in Destiny 2. Thanks for watching, I'm Marshix, and I'll see you next time. And don't forget to download Raid Shadow Legends using my link in the description to get some awesome bonuses in game.